Welcome back to 8 Minute AI. This is Michael, and today I am covering a use case for AI as a co-strategist that I used a few months ago. To start though, I'm going to go back about 3 years. I sat in a car dealership and got beaten on a lease deal. Not because I'm bad at negotiating, I've actually had pretty good success at leasing and buying cars in the past, but in this case, the market was dry, there was very little inventory, and the finance manager looked me right in the eye and basically said, "Your numbers are fair, but if you don't take this price, the next person will." And my hands were tied. I needed a new car. So I drove off with a lease that I knew I overpaid for and really didn't want. Now, fast forward to this spring, and my lease was up. I was way over the mileage, and I needed not one, but two cars. Our other family car was 10 years old and up there in mileage and not doing well, and we needed something else. So this time I brought in help. I used Claude to do my negotiating. It started off as just some prep work, and in the end, I walked out with two deals that I didn't even think were possible to begin with, and Claude did most of the work for me. So here's how I pulled it off and how you could do the same thing. The lease I overpaid for was a Honda CR-V, and I was about 15,000 miles over the lease. The lease paperwork listed something like 45 cents a mile in additional costs to turn it in, and I didn't want to buy it out either. The residual value was way over what it was worth. Additionally, we were thinking about moving to a Honda Odyssey, something bigger to make road trips more manageable. Plus, as I mentioned, our second car was over 10 years old, CR-V as well, with 180,000 miles on it, and was near the end of its usable life. We had some flexibility on the second car as long as we had the larger minivan, so we didn't mind if we dropped down to even a Civic or an Accord for the second car. So I told Claude all of this, the entire situation, the over mileage problem, my budget ceiling, my flexibility, everything I could think of, I just brain dumped into Claude. And a lot of this is things that I wouldn't feel comfortable telling a salesman across the desk, because in a negotiation, everything you reveal is leverage you hand away. But Claude was my confidential advisor. Think of it like talking to a friend who's leased 100 cars and knows all the tricks, and a friend with infinite patience and never gets tired of helping you out. Claude's first move surprised me. It told me I was in a very good bargaining position and to go to the dealership telling them that I wanted to buy out the lease and that I already had financing set up, and then to tell them I was very busy and just needed to know how to proceed. At first I thought, okay, Claude's hallucinating, or I typed something wrong in my prompt, because that's not what I want at all. And I told him that. But it came back and said, nope, trust me on this. They're going to try to get you numbers on a new lease, regardless of what you tell them. Tell them fine, but they have to be quick with it and get the numbers on a new CR-V, both a lease and buying out, all the different options. When they give you the printout of the numbers, tell them you're not tied to a CR-V and you'd also like the same numbers for an Odyssey and an HR-V. Once you get those numbers, tell them you have to run and take the printouts with you. So I gave it a shot and it went exactly as planned. It was like Claude saw the future. Everything Claude said the dealership would say, what they would try to do, it was dead on. I walked out with 3 sheets of paper, lease and purchase figures, and a bunch of other numbers like dock fees and mileage, all that stuff. I went home, took pictures, and gave them to Claude and said, here's what they're telling me. And Claude went to work. I was kind of expecting a response just saying I should be able to negotiate the price down more, but it came up with things I would have never thought of. Things like dock fees are negotiable. The HRVs aren't selling. The dealership has over 80 of them on the lot. They should be able to come down quite a bit. The Odyssey's base purchase number is inflated quite a bit. They're currently selling for $6,000 to $7,000 less than the paper states. The money factor, which is essentially the finance charge on a lease, was way high, more than 3x the going rate. All of this information was super helpful alone, and I was reading it thinking, oh, this is great, great stuff. But then Claude went a step further. It said, here's what you're going to go do. Start with the Odyssey. Negotiate that price down. Say it's still more than you wanted to pay for a minivan and switch to the HRV. Negotiate that down. Then tell them you're interested in both and negotiate the combined deal down. Then work on the lease terms, and it went on and on. And then finally, at the end, throw in the 2015 CRV as a trade-in as well. That was just a high-level overview. Claude was incredibly detailed, and it broke it down interaction by interaction, describing exactly what I should say and what I should not say for the very next contact I had with the dealer. The next morning, I received a text from the dealership. Are you going to come back today and discuss your options? So immediately, I told Claude that they texted me. It gave me the text I sent back. Not today, very busy, but the numbers on the Odyssey look very high. Can you go down to this number? I shared every interaction with Claude, and everything Claude said the dealership would respond with was right more than wrong. 90% of the interactions were over text. The dealership played their games, hidden numbers, leaving things off future price sheets, all the tricks. Claude caught them all. Things like, that fee didn't match what you said earlier, or why did you leave the residual value off this sheet? Changing the lease terms from $12,000 to $10,000, all of it. Now, very importantly, I didn't just blindly trust what Claude was telling me. I checked a lot of it myself. I did extra homework on the side to verify the lease calculations and how that works and how many HRVs were actually on the lot and all the math. There were some issues along the way. At one point, Claude mistakenly started calculating in my lease turn-in as a trade-in, knocking a huge amount off the final price. At another point, it was using old money factor values, things like that, a lot of times around the math. But my fact checking caught them, and Claude corrected itself when I brought them up. But the real power wasn't Claude being a flawless calculator. It was Claude finding the things I didn't know to look for in the first place and helping me think through it all up front. Some of the tricks worked perfectly. For some, Claude's memory was a little fuzzy or out of date, but as a knowledgeable helper to pressure test against, enormously valuable. The big lesson here is to use AI to expand what you think to check, not replace the actual checking. So how did it all end up? I walked away with a minivan I wanted and an upgraded HRV, 0 down, taxes rolled in, no first month payment, 0 out the door period for both cars, way lower lease payments than I thought was even possible on both cars. It was incredible. It actually made the process fun. Did the dealership still make money? I'm sure the salesman walked away with something in his pocket. That's how it works, and that's fine. They wouldn't have done the deal if they weren't making money. But I got a deal I almost certainly would not have gotten on my own. And would I do it again? Without hesitation. Here's my advice if you want to try something like this. First, be honest with the AI, even when you're strategic with the human. The whole edge comes from having a place where you can lay out the real situation and plan freely, like talking to a friend. Second, ask it what you're not thinking about. What fees are negotiable? What's working against the dealer right now? What am I missing? Third, and I can't say this enough, verify the numbers yourself, especially the math. It got my trade-in logic wrong, both what I was trading in and turning in, and at one point was doubling the trade-in value by taking it off both cars. And if I trusted it blindly, that mistake could have unraveled the whole deal. And fourth, again, as I said in my first point, treat it like an experienced friend, not an oracle. Some of the advice is gold, some of it's a little dated, just like working with a human. Your job is to know which is which. AI didn't replace me, it made me a much better prepared version of me. That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please give us 5 stars on wherever you listen to podcasts and share this episode with a friend. It really helps us out and helps others find the show. Thanks for listening to 8 Minute AI. Bye.